All right, Florence, well, let's kick off with your current activities around Parallel. Can you just kind of give us a sense of what Parallel is and what inspired you to get it going?
Yeah, so Parallel Social Club is a membership community that we built about 2 years ago, and it's designed for a very specific community. It's for adults who are in midlife who don't have children. So you may be wondering, wait, why is there a social club or even a community built for this demographic? Turns out that if you reach midlife, and you aren't following the traditional life script of you get married, you have kids, then you retire and you pass on your inheritance to the next generation. There's that script. For those who reach adulthood, that midlife range, and aren't following that script, life becomes it looks very different than those of our peers. And so I realized that, my husband realized that I got married late in life at 43. And at that point, and I'll share a personal story because it's related to how Parallel started. And you get married and you think, oh, the next natural step is to have kids. And so I thought, well, we're in our 40s.
Is there a lot of pressure around that, or did you feel pressure around that?
Yes, societal pressure.
Okay.
And so the script was, it's just natural, that's the next step. And so I didn't really think much about it. So fast forward, we said, well, let's get some assistance. We went through a whole IVF fertility process. During that journey, decided to stop and say, we will remain child-free. We love this lifestyle. We met later in life. We want to travel. We want to do all these things. And there are other ways to become a parent. You can adopt, there's all kinds of science out there now. But we made the decision for ourselves that we're going to remain child-free. And then we looked around and saw that we wanted this big, robust social life. And all our peers were busy parenting. Their weekends looked so different than ours. And so we said, we need to go find other friends that are living our lifestyle, but where are they? So we kept looking and we couldn't find them. So we built a social club to gather and find others that are living this lifestyle where, people have the time, the resources, the flexibility on the weekends to go out and meet new people and just invest in their social health, because we have that white space while our peers are using that white space outside of work, that time to raise their kids.
So you talk about your peers. Were these your friends?
Friends and people in society.
Okay.
So I didn't know a lot of people that actually didn't have kids. At that time I was 43, and when we started Parallel, it was, I was in my mid 40s. I am now 48.
Okay.
Now, because we started Parallel, I know a ton of people who are in midlife that don't have kids, that are living our version of adulthood. But
so before you found Parallels, or before you founded Parallels,
yeah.
Was it this journey? Did it start out like a little bit lonely, or like what was it that was like, oh, this is a space that feel like we're missing something, or it feels weird, or what was that feeling like? And then,
yes,
what was that journey like?
It is a lonely life experience when you're the only one in a group setting where you're not a parent. So we were invited to a lot of social gatherings, Super Bowl parties, picnics, just all kinds of social dinners, etc. We found that either we were the only ones, well, not either, we were the only ones that weren't parents in those circles. So everyone, naturally, the topic of conversation revolved around their kids or parenting life. And we just stood there with our cocktails, just stood there just listening. And after going to so many social functions where the conversations were all around family life and parenting, and we couldn't relate, we said, let's see if we can find other people that we can have conversations with that are outside of the topic of kids and that we could relate to. So that's why we started Parallel, because we were experiencing this kind of the unrelatability piece. Our priorities were different, our schedules were different, the conversation topics were different, and also when trying to schedule something, go to brunch with my girlfriends, they're all moms, it took 3 months to get something on the calendar.
Yeah.
And, or someone would cancel because a babysitter kind of fell through or something like that. And
What were you feeling from that? Were you getting like judgment, or was it just unrelatable?
Luckily in Los Angeles, I think the community is a lot more open-minded, and so we didn't receive any outright judgment. Why aren't you having kids? You should have kids. You know, what are you doing? Not that kind. However, I know other people who have experienced more overt judgment. There's a lot of, I think, misunderstanding out there about this life. There are some people who chose not to have kids in Parallel Social Club. Some people who couldn't have kids. And there's just a variety of stories. But I think those who are child-free, this term, child-free, are often misunderstood and judged.
It's almost like the Charlie Sheen brand kind of thing where, he had, almost think about 2.5 Men, right? Where he was, just this guy who is like deemed an asshole almost, because he didn't get married and have kids. That you're kind of rebranding this space.
Absolutely.
And probably educating a lot too.
Yes, absolutely. Because I think if you see now social media can be a toxic place in the comment sections, right? We all know that. But it sheds light into what society, a segment of society might be thinking about those who don't have kids. There's a lot of judgment around, saying, oh, you're selfish, especially if you're a woman. Now, it's a different experience for men who don't have kids.
I can see that.
But for women who are of a certain age who don't have kids, a lot of questions come up. And there is a lot of pressure put on women to have kids. Your purpose on this planet is to have kids. Or what are you going to do with your life if you don't have kids? Who's going to take care of you when you're old? There are all these questions that come up. And those who are child-free have a lot of great answers to these questions if we're given the space to have that conversation. But oftentimes people will be quick to judge and placing their own kind of are coming up with their own conclusions. Yeah, their own assumptions about why someone might choose not to have kids. Because we have about 100 members within Parallel right now, I have observed and take just a lot of different stories of people's lives. And I'll tell you, what the media covers is just one piece. There is so much diversity and variety in terms of the lived experiences, yes, and the reason. It's very nuanced, actually.
Where you've landed was a result of just how things unpacked. Yeah. But if you rewind the tape, did you want to have kids? Did you, as you look at it in hindsight? Because I think through, my wife and I were just we came from families with multiple kids. It's kind of just innate in you that this is how it's going to be. When you reflect back and think through it, do you feel like you did want to have kids, or how do you think that unpacked?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I grew up as that kid that's the rule follower, right? And got straight A's in school, did everything that society and parents, kind of expected of me, went to college, went to grad school, did the whole thing. So I actually didn't put much thought into whether having kids or not was a choice. I just thought it was just something you do. Like college was something I just naturally had to do, right? So and then you get a job. It's just a natural next step. So there was no intentionality put towards, yes, I want to have kids, or no, I do not. And then there came a time when, I was enjoying my career. I was enjoying building Heady Group. I went off on my own after I left corporate America, only my mid-30s, and I built this company, and it was so fun. Moved to New York. And I got a lot of pressure from people saying, you can build your business at any time, but you're in your late 30s. You should probably consider getting married and having kids. And these were coming from not the older generation, but actually peers. And so I thought, but I'm enjoying my life. I guess I'll have kids in the future if I get married, but it's not something that I always wanted. I wasn't one of those people that played with dolls thinking, I want to have a baby one day. I was just someone who played with dolls because it was there. So you reach a certain point in adulthood, and even when I was, let's say, 40, I thought, oh, yeah, I'll probably have kids, or maybe not. Because I'm 40, I'm a woman, and I'm single. Let's be real, right? I said, I might run out of time. But it wasn't something that I grieved. It wasn't something that I said, you know what? I'm going to live my life, the best life that I can live, given the circumstances of what my life is. So for me, it wasn't there was no big push or pull saying, I need to be a mother. But that didn't mean that I wasn't going in that direction, because I was. And I thought, that will happen. And
You just didn't have to have that kind of post-traumatic like recovery from it.
I didn't. I know there are many women who always wanted to have children, and they reach a certain age, or they're not partnered in the way that they want to be. And so they have to grieve that expectation of their life, that plan that they had, plan A. For me, my plan A was not scripted, so structured. So I didn't have labels saying I need to be married, I need to have a child. And I thought, if that happens, that would be a wonderful life. But if this life happens, that would be a wonderful life. So that perspective led me to kind of just be open to wherever life took me.
So you weren't a people pleaser, is that what you're saying?
I think everybody to some degree, right?
It's because a lot of times it comes from your parents, right? It's like this idea that you want to please them and make them happy and make them proud, and all of the stuff that goes along with that, right? And especially in certain cultures too. It's like certain cultures really value that, and the family, and
absolutely,
this is the generations, and we got to do all these things. So how did that play out in your family?
Yeah. I lucked out in that my parents never pressured me about anything, except maybe getting married. Oh, you should get married sometime. But kids, career, you need to be, I'm Korean, born in the States here. So being Korean American, but of immigrant parents. Of course, they wanted, the stereotype is they want you to be a doctor, be a lawyer, be very successful, get married, have kids, follow the traditional life script. I didn't. I got my master's in social work instead of going to law school because I wanted to help people. I am very community minded, and we're very politically involved, just involved in my community for 20 something years. But my parents were always proud. They never put that pressure on me. And so even when I was making a decision and decided to pursue fertility treatment, and say, okay, well, let's just try that route and see if it works. If it doesn't, okay. If it does, okay. I had to talk to my mom and say, is it okay with you if I don't have children? And she was actually okay with that. She said, I just want you to be healthy. I want you to be happy. You and your husband chart your own path. So I feel very lucky in that I didn't have to deal with that.
That's not in the norm.
It's not. But because there's still a cultural, almost I'll call it pressure, right? Even though my mom said she didn't give me any verbal pressure, of course she wants grandkids, right? Of course she wants the experience of being a grandmother. I'm never going to experience being a mother, but I have to also acknowledge a lot of child-free women also, and people need to acknowledge that their parents, they're not going to have that experience either because of my choice or my circumstance. And that's something that I need to also give her space to process, because she probably thought and assumed one day I will be a grandparent, just like we all kind of assume one day I'll probably have a kid and be a mom or a dad. Right?
What was the experience like for your husband in all of this?
Yeah, good question. We were on the same page, thank goodness. Because there are some couples who are not on the same page, and one has to adapt to the other when someone says, okay, I've decided I don't want children, and the other one was thinking, oh, maybe I wanted children. At the beginning, we talked about it. So our story, we met during COVID, and we got married within 6 months
Oh, wow.
of knowing each other. When you're in your 40s and you just know, you just know.
Yeah. Amazing.
And so, and he is to this day, and it's been 6 years, and my best friend. And just, I am so glad that I waited. And I'm so glad that I have this partner that's aligned. So we talked about it. We talked about everything. Even before we went to City Hall during COVID and got married, said, do you want kids? And we were both on the fence. And we said, well, I don't know. I'm okay with not having kids. Let's go explore the world and build this big life. And we said, but it would be wonderful to have this cute baby in between us. And so we were on the fence. And then because we're both very practical people, we said, is this even going to work? We're in our 40s. Let's just see. Let's see if science will help us. And so that's why we went that route.
It's interesting because like major events can either couples grow together or grow apart.
Yeah.
Rome, it sounds like this brought you together and a bit of a journey that unpacked over time.
We started on the same foot. And so from the beginning, we had one of the things I would attribute to the success of the relationship is the communication piece. As trite as that may sound, that was one of the number one things I was looking for in a relationship, and I found it. And so that's why after 6 months, and we knew. And so we talked about everything very openly, and we knew that we were on the same page, and there was so much alignment that when traveling this life, there's just not as much friction as maybe past relationships. And so that's why we're able to make these major life decisions together.
That's really cool because I know that can cause conflict too if you have one that does or doesn't. And
yeah.
That's really nice.
I've known couples to break up over that issue, and rightfully so. So everyone can find their happy life,
what they want.
Right.
And you mentioned your mom or your parents, and giving them that space to go through their own process. Have they talked to you about getting their own judgment for like around that topic, or being judged?
No, but I will share an interesting story that I found both funny and profound at the same time. My mom, I have a dog, and being Korean, I wipe his paws after every walk because we don't wear shoes in the house. I want him to be clean when he enters the house. So we have these paw wipes. My mom has the membership to Costco, so she buys them for us, right? These baby wipes, actually. She went to Costco and she called me and said, I'm getting the baby wipes for Kobe. And she told me this story. And she said she was waiting for the Costco employee to unpack the pallet and there were several people waiting for these baby wipes. And there was an older woman who's clearly a grandmother who said, while they were all waiting around, she said to my mom, oh, these are my favorite baby wipes. It's for my granddaughter, right? And then my mom told me that she told the stranger, yes, I love these. I'm getting these for my grandson.
That's great.
And I paused for a second on the phone because she wasn't joking. She was just matter-of-factly telling this story to me. And then we just kind of moved past it and talked about other things. I hung up the phone and I thought, she called my dog her grandson? Did she really do that? And it was funny, but also I say it was interesting, right? Because she has adapted to this new reality. Maybe her expectations didn't really come to fruition of being a grandmother. But hey, the next best thing, we're just going to have fun with this.
That's right.
We're just going to say, that's my grand dog, right? And just to be in conversation with the stranger.
Well,
just for fun. She said, I'm getting this for my grandson.
I mean, about half the days of the week, I like my dogs better than my kids. So,
Don't let your kids hear this.
Oh, they know. They know.
Yeah.
Well, this might be an interesting way to kind of go back to, how you grew up. you said you're, a kid of immigrant parents.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that, what that was like,
Yeah.
as a kid, and, how that's kind of shaped you?
Yeah. I would say I grew up in Los Angeles my whole life. I was born in Georgia. My father was in the U.S. military, in the U.S. Army. My mother was a nurse, and they met in Germany while he was stationed out there, and she was working at a German hospital. And I was born on an Army base in Georgia, but then lived in L.A. my whole life.
And they're
pretty much. They're both Korean.
Okay.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a unique story. Yeah. Because Germany, there aren't a lot of Koreans there, so they somehow found each other. And so growing up, I feel like we didn't grow up with a lot of financial resources, but I feel like I had a very happy childhood, and that was because of my mom, my parents. And she tried her best to give the kids every experience, but it was very limited. Now, I didn't know when I was a child that I had limitations in my experiences and what my summers were like compared to other friends' summers and how they grew up as a child. But maybe ignorance is bliss. And so it was great. Struggled, all of that. But I think because we struggled and because growing up in the city in an urban environment, I told myself, I never want to financially struggle. I want to help my parents. That has been something that from my childhood that has carried me. But there are other reasons why I didn't go to business, get my MBA, although I was this close, or why I didn't go to law school, even though all my mentors told me to go to law school. And I went to social work school because what rose to the top still was I felt like I had a great childhood, great experiences in college and beyond. And so I thought, I felt very lucky. So I said, I have to pay it forward because given where I came from, the life that I had as a child and my family life, to the vast array of experiences that I was very lucky to have in my 20s and 30s till now, and the rooms that I found myself in, the experiences, just, where I felt like I had no business being there, where I'm the least wealthiest person or the least pedigreed East Coast, pedigreed person in the room while I was living in New York, but I had a seat at the table. And I feel like it was all, there was a lot of luck, or someone's looking out for me, or something's happening. So because I felt so lucky, I felt like I needed to pay it forward. And that's been a theme that's been throughout my life. And so the career choices and the jobs and the way that I spend my time has always been around social impact, giving back, contributing somehow. So that's why, if you look at my career, I was a community organizer, I was a youth development kind of program leader. Then I went into, just macro level community impact work, corporate social responsibility, running those teams, and then took me to public safety. Spent a lot of time.
Was there a mental shift in there that I might have heard? Because it sounded like you were saying how you wanted to take care of your parents. It sounded financial, like I want to give back to these immigrant parents. And then you shifted to this more like giving experience back through community servantship, if you will. Was there something that, did I summarize it correctly? And was there a mental connection that shifted that perspective?
I would characterize it as a duality that I have navigated through my whole adult life of making a decision between I will always be there to take care of my parents. That could mean financially as well as just kind of emotionally, socially being present. But if it was all financial, I probably should have been a lawyer, right? But I had this other part of me where that feeling of gratitude and feeling very lucky for good things happening in my life, and that drive to give back, that I could have done it on the side, working as a lawyer maybe, but I decided to commit my whole career, all of my time towards it. And so every job that I had had to have some sort of community impact angle to it. And when I say the duality and sometimes the struggle is, should I have gone this route? Or should I have gone, there's always kind of, you go through so many forks in the road.
What's interesting is it's this duality where the way you're describing it is you're actually doing this for yourself rather than for your parents.
Mm-hmm.
And that also aligns, by doing something for yourself, it aligns with, you being able to support them.
Yeah, it's a kind of this the sense of mission. I have to be, or, what's the purpose of my life? Why was I put here? How can I support my parents, make them proud, but also serve, right? Also make impact with the time, skills, talents, whatever combination I was given. Everyone's given some package, right? With the package that I've been given, how do I maximize that to make an impact in the community? That was always my driving force. At the same time, I have to be present and, and be there to take care of my parents as well. Sometimes it's in conflict.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
You talk a lot about this idea of gratitude, and that is what's been inspiring for you of this, giving back. Was that something that you learned from like your mom, where she was very grateful for everything that she had, or, where did that come from? Because gratitude is an interesting thing, to think about.
Spiritual upbringing. So I grew up in the church, in the Christian tradition. And I was very much I led different youth groups. So when I was in college, I would go back and run these youth groups, and those who were maybe caught up in gangs or caught up in drugs, and their moms would come to me and say, could you help my kid? I just grew up with a foundation of values that were birthed out of the Christian tradition. And though I may not be going to church on Sundays as an adult now, those values were very much ingrained in me that actually dictated how I live life. So and that's why I call them spiritual rather than religious, because I may not be actively participating in religious life as an adult right now. But all of those spiritual values and principles really, really, I credit that to where the gratitude, yes, to where my gratitude and all of that comes from. And also knowing where my parents came from and the struggles of just kind of making it for their kids, and just being very thankful to them for their sacrifices. And so feeling like I need to give back. I need to be a good citizen,
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how you mentioned like how people came to you to help, with kids that were in gangs or involved in drugs or other things that are big challenges for kids. Is that how you started to move into this, public safety arena? Because, that's an interest. Just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I thought in college, I interned at the probation department. I thought I wanted to be a probation officer. Can you imagine me at juvenile hall as a probation officer? I realized during that internship, maybe get some tattoos, and I thought, okay, maybe that's not my career path. But I always wanted to work with youth. But that started me on this path, and it's serendipity. I ended up just working with law enforcement. I had law enforcement officials as mentors, law enforcement executives that were my mentors for some reason. And so I was just around that culture. And then I was working with them on creating drug-free communities. There was a school shooting at the high school where I was running my youth program. And then I had to organize LAUSD with the parents and the schools, the kids, and kind of bring everyone together to try to figure out how to create safer schools.
Was something happened at that school? Or?
Yeah, there was a school. One of my kids actually got shot.
Oh wow!
And so, but she lived. And yes, and there was a kid that brought a gun to school in a backpack, and it went off accidentally, actually. But it was, and so that fell into, and then Target Corporation recruited me because they were starting a public safety portfolio in terms of their corporate social responsibility platform, and they wanted to help build safer communities. And so because I had all those law enforcement connections, I became the law enforcement gal, got a building public-private partnerships on behalf of a corporation. So working with police departments, going to all the conferences, representing the company, funding programs that would help create safer communities and positive relationships between communities and police. As we all know, it's an ongoing issue. And so at that time, there was a company willing to place resources and had built a whole team around it. I was on that team. So I built relationships with police chiefs all over the country, and we would fund projects to make a difference in public safety. And I did that for 7 years, and then I moved to New York and went off on my own and started building partnerships and doing that for other companies that wanted. So I worked with Amazon, and I worked with Ross, and a bunch of different companies that wanted to make a difference.
It sounds like that's an opportunity to shift from into a consulting type role. I'm really curious, as you get back to parallel, like none of these things are pure entrepreneurial, except consulting's a little bit like dipping into that. Like as you decided to launch this this group, like what did you lack, or what did you have that you felt gave you the confidence that you could pull it off?
Yeah. Delusions, maybe. No, I had been entrepreneurial, or what they call intrapreneurial, even when I was in-house in these companies and these organizations. All of the organizations I worked for, I was the first in role.
You kind of created.
Yeah, I created those roles. And so I was always building and creating within my roles. Then when I moved to New York, I started Heady Group, and I said, I'm starting my own public affairs firm. I knew no one in New York. So I had to just look up Chamber of Commerce on the website, show up, make business cards, and say, hey, I just moved here from LA. I'm in my mid-30s. Maybe I started this consulting practice too soon. I left all my contacts in my network in LA, started over in New York, but I did it. And I found my first client. It was the Federal Enforcement Homeland Security Foundation. I helped advise that foundation and run that foundation. And then just other corporate clients started coming. So I did that for 12 years, building, hustling, making things happen. But the through line is building partnerships and bringing unlikely people together. That's something that I felt like I had a lot of experience doing. So when you try to bring a big brand together with a government agency, with a nonprofit, with community leaders, and you try to get them all around a table to march toward one direction, it's really difficult, or coming up with new initiatives. Yes, and so I was able to sit in the in-between and translate for folks. And because I understood the various stakeholders, bringing them together and partnerships, and I was always the connector. And so because of that through line, I think it translates to me running Parallel Social Club now, always being entrepreneurial and wanting to build and create. And then I left my consulting business. I downsized that. We had a team of 5 people, downsized, COVID, all of that. Then this next chapter said, as I enter the second half of my life, do I want to keep doing what I've been doing? I said, that was really serious work. I was a little burnt out. Corporate security, public safety, really tough stuff in terms of problem solving in that arena. So I said, okay, I think I'm going to change course here.
What was the burnout piece of that? Like, 12 years, very successful at it. You were really good at it.
George Floyd, 2020, the riots, the the protests. It was a very, very intense time. I started a nonprofit at that time to house the projects that I was doing with Gen Zers who were out on the protest lines, who wanted to make a difference in policing, but they didn't know what to do. So there were these different organizations that called and said, can you navigate the young people that were 18 to maybe 22 years old? I said yes. And so we did that. It was exhausting. And then all the corporate clients that I had worked with, who at that point had an interest in placing investments, dollars, sponsorship dollars into helping solve this problem of police community relations, those dollars went elsewhere. And so there were, even the clients that I had in corporate America all went away because no one wanted to work with law enforcement at that time, because it was a really sensitive time for the country. And so that's why I started that nonprofit, to still do the work, but try to raise funds. So I raised funds, paid all of the staff to try to get these projects off the ground. And we're proud of some of the projects that we did.
Yeah, it's a tough environment.
It was very tough. And it was during COVID, during the shutdown too.
Yeah.
So then that's when I made the pivot. I said, okay, I think I need a break. I'm on Zoom calls and people are crying. Yeah. I was talking with universities and they were involved in these projects out in Atlanta. And it was, you get this close and then it was just a tough time. Yeah. So, and then I was personally going through a transition. I got married at the time and I said, people, when they enter their 40s or so, I think they enter a time of either midlife reflection or full-blown midlife crisis, right? Which I don't think is a bad thing, right? I entered
the reflection of the crisis.
Either one.
Yeah.
The crisis actually, sometimes people, depending on how that is expressed, can be problematic. But the fact that people are starting to examine their life and where they're going at that midpoint, I think that's a good thing. I did the same thing. And so I decided that I wanted to invest my time elsewhere and needed to also take care of my mental health too, right? It's a really tough time in 2020 and 21. So that's when I pivoted and went on this personal journey. And then because of my personal story of kids, no kids, from that experience came establishing this community, branding it, and trying to help champion social health and wellness for other child-free adults.
And what's the audience for it? You're in LA. You referenced about 100 members. Is it LA specific? What is it today, and what is it going to be in the future, you think?
Yeah. Right now, we're operational in LA, but with a big vision to go expand to other cities. So our second city looks like will be Chicago. So last week I was in Chicago. We ran a pop-up event and there were about 50 people in the room. We had a fireside chat with 3 speakers. We had a social mixer. We did all these things and the energy was just awesome.
So you feel there's a demand.
Oh, yes. And they were saying, this is the first time I've been in a room full of so many people who are living my version of adulthood. They knew of online communities and Facebook groups, things like that, but it's very different when you're sitting in a room with 50 other people who are professionals. They're all in their, maybe 30s and 40s and trying to navigate life and navigate their own experience within a society where they're living a little different off script. So there's a demand there, and I've been getting a lot of inbound inquiries from people in New York, Toronto, San Diego, and Denver, a lot of different cities. And so we are a very thoughtful, intentional community that we're building. Is because it's in real life. We're bringing people together 10 times a month. Well, we have 10 social experiences a month that we offer. And some people will show up 4 times a month. Some people will show up 1 time a month, whatever fits their life.
To me, it sort of, if I think about a word, that lands as like tribe. And if you think about how, like, we both have, he has one daughter in college, the second one about to go, my daughter's about to go to college. Like, a big part of, as a parent, what you think about in those, their life changes is like finding a new tribe wherever you're at.
Yes.
So it's almost like the inverse here. Your life hasn't really changed, but everybody around you's life may have changed in a similar time frame. And so then you're left saying like, okay, well, where's my tribe now? You know, and it sounds like that's what you're building.
Yes, that's exactly it, because everyone is child-free when you're 20, 21, 18, and then everyone, a lot of people enter into this new phase of life, and so what happens is those who aren't going along that path and chose or was going on a different path you start experiencing a friendship recession naturally, because people who are parents who are meeting their tribe through mommy and me classes, school pickups, little league practice, you know, the kids are in sports together, that sort of thing. There's infrastructure for people to meet new people, right? They move to the suburbs because of the kids' schools. And then for those who are approaching 40, 42, they're still single. They were looking for a partner, but they're still single. Or they're married and don't have kids. It's a very different life. And so that's why that whole friendship recession thing is actually real. Not because you don't want to hang out with your friends who are in the raising kids stage of life. It's just naturally they're very busy, as they should be, right? Their weekends, they should be at their kids' soccer match. But do I want to be at a soccer match for kids every weekend and going to kids' birthday parties and, when I don't have a kid? It's a very different lifestyle, right? I love my kids with friends, but my weekends look different. So parallel has truly...
My parents who have kids that are like younger. You know, it's like once you pass
we already hit that stage,
I'm past that. I'm good.
There's a Harvard longevity study, right? The longest running study on adult development, that said that the single most important and significant factor to predict a long, happy life is not genetics. It's not diet or exercise. It's actually social connections and the quality of your relationships and community. And that study's been running for, I think, 90 years. And so there have been a lot of articles around that study and that outcome.
Connect with the whole blue zone.
Yes. And also, I think a lot of us have heard loneliness is just as bad for your health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, right? So there's a lot of research that's been coming out about the impact of loneliness on physical health as well as your emotional health, mental health, and that ties into longevity. And right now, we're in Southern California, and wellness culture is a big thing, but in the wellness conversation, it's usually physical health and mental health. But social health is not really talked about as much. But if we look at the trends right now, in-person communities, in-person experiences are on the rise as social media has taken a hold, and AI, in the era of AI, what is real in-person, human-to-human connections, that is what people have been craving. And so therefore, even the brands are now jumping on that bandwagon. Hospitality centers, hotels, they're all trying to figure out, how do we create or bring in community? How do we gather people in real life out of their offices, off Zoom, off the online communities that were thriving for many years? And now we're entering the era of IRL. In real life, people to people, we are filming this podcast in real life and not on StreamYard or on Zoom.
Thank God.
Right? So we know that there's something there and people are craving it. So we're providing that platform and that social infrastructure for a demographic that is emerging and giving them a space to connect with others that are like-minded, that are in a similar season of life. So our members are all in their 30s, 40s, and 50s. Our critical mass, actually, maybe 38 to 48, in their 40s, right? And men and women.
That's great. I wonder, maybe one more question here before we transition into rapid fire. Is it a social platform or club only, or is there any sort of educational piece so that if I find this club and I'm in that phase of life, but I don't know how to educate my family or what to do with relationships, is there educational support elements to it or just social?
Yes, there are actually. So the first year we spent running all kinds of social activities to bring people together, give them an opportunity to make some new friends. Then we heard from our members, they want to go deeper. So we started a program called Parallel Commons. Our circles are around, there's a book club, a reading circle, a travel circle, all around interests and hobbies. Then we started Parallel Commons. So conversation circles around common life experiences. So we just had one this weekend, a conversation group around the topic of navigating aging parents. Because we're all in this age right now where people are trying to figure out how to manage their parents getting older, them becoming adult caregivers, and maybe having mom and dad move in with us, and making these big decisions for their aging parents. And it's tough. And there's a knowledge gap. Assisted living, how does senior housing work? How, what are the healthcare options? It's a knowledge gap, and busy professionals don't really have time to research all of that. So we have these conversation groups for people to talk to each other about what they're doing, kind of crowdsource information, and there's a peer-to-peer piece, but also we bring in guest speakers. So we have something coming up in September to talk about giving resources for this very topic of aging parents. Also, financial planning. Retirement planning is very different when you don't have kids to leave $2 million, $5 million to, right? Who you're going to give your money to? What are you saving for? This idea of maybe spending your money wisely so you don't run out, but at the same time, using your money to live life. And if you're going to give to your niece or nephew, maybe give it to them now, not wait till maybe you pass away, right?
See
You're
the
going
fruits of the
to
labor.
If you want to
love
give
that.
to your favorite charity, maybe get on that board now. Give now instead of waiting until you pass away. Retirement planning, I think a lot of people don't think about this, but when you don't have kids and you're aging, there are a lot of topics that that we have to handle very differently. Retirement planning, financial planning, life design, aging, right? Who's going to take care of us when we're older? All of those questions.
I think you do better in all those things, right?
Yeah.
We have to be very intentional.
Well, also
and
how you think
thoughtful.
about legacy too probably is different.
Yes. There are so many, the big questions in life and the big decisions that we as adults make in life are different. And so that's why we want to bring these resources, guest speakers, authors, etc., to our club members. So it's not just a social club. We're not just bowling on the weekends.
Well, let's transition over. Gabe, did Mia warn you that there'd be a rapid fire? It's very intense.
Yes, I am ready.
So whatever the first word or phrase, short answer comes to mind, you want to kick us off, Gabe?
All right, let's start with best decision you've ever made without knowing how it would turn out.
Marrying my husband.
Aww.
Yeah, I like that.
Hopefully he listens to this.
Yeah.
We'll text him that highlight piece of
Now,
notes.
I wonder what his answer would be.
What the heck's a dinkwad?
Double income, no kids, with a dog. Me.
All right. What if they have more than one dog? Is it dinkwads?
I'll say yes to that. Yeah.
What's one myth about the child-free life you wish would disappear?
That it's selfish. When you get into the nuances, my goodness, when I talk to my club members, the reasons why they decided to not have kids are actually really profound and very thought out, very selfless actually. For those, let's say, who had cancer, those who didn't want to pass on generational trauma, those who have genetic issues that didn't want to, or, you know, financial situations. They wanted their child to have a really great life and they didn't want their, you know, there's so many reasons. And when we really listen to the stories of people, I think we'll realize that it's actually not selfish that they chose not to have kids. Actually, very selfless and very thought out.
I think the world could probably use a few people not having kids, actually. What's the best spot in LA for dinks together?
Oh, that's a good question.
That's Mia's question.
You know, they're just, I would say, restaurants. I mean, that's for everybody. But we do a lot of dining out, and around the table is when the true conversations, the connecting happens, right? So I would say that, or maybe a yacht. That might be nice too. We just took a group of 11 people on a yacht to Croatia for our first parallel global adventure.
Gabe just got back from one of those last
You
summer.
did.
Yeah, it was more a catamaran. It wasn't a yacht, but
It's a boat, and it was a wonderful
it was nice.
experience.
It was nice.
Yes.
Actually, that was the next question was, I think you might have answered, or maybe was this idea of like, for the dream event, you know, no budget, something that you're thinking about, like for a parallel event. What would that be? Something just out of this world.
A week long, or even if it's a weekend retreat somewhere.
Exotic.
Big travel, but not just to travel, go on vacation, but a retreat with programming. We've been thinking and dreaming about this. We're putting it together. I don't know when it's going to happen, but bringing people from the LA club, the Chicago club, the Denver club, San Diego, and maybe even Barcelona one day. Bring them together once a year for a week-long retreat where they get to meet other people, feel very validated in the choices that they've made in life and the direction their life is taking, feel very encouraged to design their life with intention and live the best life that they can, regardless of whether it panned out the way that they wanted or not. Turn your plan B into plan A and live that version of life that was given to you at the moment and live it the best you can. And having a week-long event where we gather people and just inspire them and have tons of fun doing it, that would be a dream.
If our kids are moved out of the house, do we get to join back into that society? Do we
Empty
circle back?
nesters. Empty nesters.
We might want to be on the trip. I mean, with our own
Yes.
kids, not with each
Yes,
other.
we've been asked many times by empty nesters who said, my kids are out of the house, so I'm living that same lifestyle too. I'm back on the weekends. Can I join? And we said, I think empty nesters, that edition,
That should be a
is
different
probably
group.
coming next.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, so we're not in yet.
Yeah.
All right. So it's called Discover the Difference, the podcast. So we have two final questions. Gabe, if you want to kick us off.
Yeah. So when you look back and reflect, and we talked about reflecting on, and you're, talking to, maybe it's Florence at 14 or 16 or 18, what kind of advice would you give her, knowing what you know today?
The things are going to be okay, and more than okay. Because when you're that young, I think there's anxiety, and they say, oh, the world is your oyster, you're so young, but you have all this anxiety as to what that world will look like. And I would say, don't worry, it'll be okay. Just keep going. And so, yeah.
I like that.
It'll
I
be
think that's
okay.
the advice that we all need when we look back. So the final question here is around difference, and what's your differentiating quality that makes you, or your superwoman power that you feel you have, that gives you this ability to bring people together who maybe speak different languages and give them a place of purpose?
I would say empathy and not judging. That has been the biggest thing. I am in a human-centered business, right? It's all about people. People are so complex, and they're so different. And the moment we judge a person, even by, it's not the trite, oh, don't judge a book by its cover. It's not even that. But even if you see 2 layers in and you're on the 3rd chapter of that book, don't judge, because there's so much story behind that person's life that leads to why that person is the way that they are now. And I feel like I have that ability to see that, or recognize that concept at least, right? I can't read people's minds or stories, but I understand that concept enough to where that dictates my openness to people. And that's the only way I'm able to bring all of these people together and figure out a way to connect the dots for people. Because I can see, I don't judge, and try to understand where they're coming from, and that empathy piece. Maybe that's why me going to social work school and getting my master's there really helped lead to where I am today, and bringing all the skill sets and experiences together to create wonderful experiences for people now through this club, and bring connectivity, facilitating that. Because it just doesn't happen by magic. It really doesn't.
It's a real gift.
It needs to be nurtured, facilitated, and the conditions need to be created behind the scenes. I say we need to create Disneyland. People don't need to see the tunnels underneath Disneyland and running around like crazy making things happen. But we want people to experience the magic of connectivity.
Well, so for people who may see this and they want to experience the magic and they qualify, how's best to connect or reach out to you?
Yeah. Our website, parallelsocialclub.com, we do have an application available there for people who want to learn more or are considering joining the club. Even if they're not in Los Angeles, we'd love to hear from people, because we want to know where people are and see where our next expansion will be, right? And then on Instagram, Parallel Social Club.
Very good.
Awesome.
Well, thanks so much for coming down from LA and spending some time with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.